We'd love to know if this next story has affected you. Do get in touch if so, because a number of people who use guide dogs say that they've been illegally refused entry into shops and stopped from using services because of their guide dog.
New research by the Guide Dogs charity found that 81% of blind and partially sighted people who use dogs were discriminated against in this way.
Well, the charity's launching a new campaign to try and help teach everybody the law. And our East Midlands reporter, Will Hollis, joins us now for more on all of this. I mean, that is a staggering figure, 81%. There clearly needs to be a lot of re-education.
Yes, very much so. You'd think it's something that most people that work in the service industry, most people in the public would know, that if you do have a guide dog because you're blind or partially sighted, you're allowed to go wherever you need to go with that guide dog. We're in a cafe here, so under normal circumstances, anybody who has a guide dog would be allowed to come in. We've managed to get them in to open a little bit earlier, though, so that we could come in, film, especially with somebody who uses a guide dog, Brian and Giles, who's down here as well. I'll be extra careful to try not to step on Giles' nose there. But Brian, this is obviously a huge campaign for the Guide Dogs charity. But tell me a little bit about your experience as being partially sighted and how you've been refused entry to use basic services.
Well, basically, I've been refused in some major chain store shops, just walking in, and it's very embarrassing when someone comes up to you and taps on your shoulder and says, "You're not allowed in here because you've got a dog." And I think, well, the dog is allowed in here. It's by law, you're supposed to let the dog in. It's very embarrassing, and then it's very upsetting.
You've used the words embarrassing and upsetting. How does it change your day-to-day when you are refused to get into something like a bus or maybe even a taxi?
Well, the reason I got the dog was so I could be more mobile and not relying on other people to take me out or, hold me hand and help me cross roads. And to be refused, you think, well, I'm being restricted for what as a person can do. It's just generally like go shopping or just get some bits and pieces for home, of milk, sugar, whatever I need. And they're refusing me to do that. And how would I do that if I didn't have help?
Yeah, obviously anybody who's partially sighted or blind, the circumstances are different, but you started to lose your sight around about 7 years ago. When that first started to happen, how did that change your life?
Well, when I first lost sight in my left eye, I had to adapt to change things. I was still working at the time at the airport in Manchester, and then I had a problem with my right eye. I went to the opticians and they said, "You've got macular degeneration." And over the years, it's gone worse and worse. And now I've got some sight. It's bearable, but like I say, I can't see your features. I know you're there. I can hear you. I can see your shadow, but you have to adapt to change, and that's why obviously I got in touch with Guide Dogs so I could have a dog. So he could help me get about, do things, be back to being a normal person. Yeah,
and Giles, who's down here, who's so incredibly well behaved. How has Giles changed your life? Because it must be in a massive way.
Oh yeah, definitely. I can go out now. I can go out without having to be chaperoned by my wife or by family, friends. I can go out and be independent, and that's an important thing for me because I was always independent. I like to go fishing. I used to go camping. I used to love time by myself, but obviously I can't do much of that now. So Giles now enables me to get out and meet other people. I can be sociable with other people.
And there are obviously many charities, but Guide Dogs is the biggest national charity for people that use guide dogs in this way. This big campaign called Open Doors, it's about teaching and educating what is a basic law, really, a part of the Equality Act. What do you hope that your involvement, being on GBNews, being on the telly today, talking a little bit about your story, might help for this campaign and for the national charity?
Well, I hope it makes companies understand and realise they need to train the staff properly, because as I say, at the end of the day, it is illegal to refuse a guide dog into any premises. So there's certain places, I suppose, a guide dog's not allowed to go, like star rooms and stuff like that, but generally a guide can go most places more than other people. And for them to refuse him, it's like it's refusing me, my normal life.
Yeah. And then some of those places where you have been refused entry, you said some chain stores. What about places like getting on a bus or for taxis?
I've never really had a problem with a bus. I've had problems with taxis because normally if I phone a taxi, I'll say to the operator, "I've got a guide dog. Just I don't have to, but I do just to be polite. Just let you know that I've got an assistance dog." And generally, I don't have a problem. But 2 or 3 times, if a driver has turned up and said, "I'm not taking a dog," and just drive away. And
then that leaves you stuck somewhere.
Yeah, it leaves me stranded. Good job I've got that bit of eyesight. I can imagine what it would be like someone who was totally blind. It must be horrendous for them. It was bad for me, so I can imagine what it's like someone who's totally blind. It must be terrible.
Well, it was incredible that you were here even before us, so we can attest to the skills of Giles, who's down here, so well behaved, but you can expect it because they go through rigorous training, don't they, with guide dogs? If I had my dogs here, they would be running around all over the place, but I don't think they'd be very good at getting even me to link. And how well behaved and how much does Giles really benefit your life?
Oh, he's very well behaved. He's pretty much does on command what I need him to do. He can be cheeky. He can be a little cheeky chap sometimes, and if you take his harness off, he knows he's not working, and he's just a typical playful Labrador. He'll crawl on the floor, commandoing as we call it, me and the wife, but it's changed my life a hell of a lot, and it makes a hell of a lot of difference for me, and I'm sure it makes a lot of difference for thousands of people that guide dogs supply these dogs to.
Yeah, and you said when he takes his harness off. Obviously, if you do see somebody that has a guide dog in the street because it's helping them get around, if they are wearing their harness, they are, of course, working. And if you are going to stroke or try to have a conversation with a person, it's always best to ask if that's okay with the person.
Yes, that's the best thing to do. If you ever approach them, say, always ask the owner or the person with the dog, say, "Do you mind if I stroke the dog?" Some will say yes, some will say no. Depends on the person themselves. But yeah, please ask.
Fantastic. We're going to get a coffee, we're going to have a little bit of a chat, and we'll be here throughout the morning with Giles and, of course, Brian.
Cheers, Will. Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Giles, as well, who's, I was going to say he's hard at work. Technically, he is at work, although, he's having a little snooze on the floor there.
Snooze on the job.
Bless him. But that's such an important point as well. A lot of people reach out to stroke guide dogs. They're working.
Yeah. It's a very natural response, but I think, with all dogs anyway, you should probably ask the owner because you never know. But with guide dogs especially, because, as I say, it can distract them from their very important, often life or death breaking role of protecting the person they're guiding.
Yeah.
So good advice there.
Great stuff.